Renovaro Biosciences is an advanced preclinical biotechnology firm in cell, gene, and immunotherapy focused on solid tumors with short life expectancy. So here to explain more about that and the company in general, Mark Dybul, the CEO of Renovaro Biosciences. Welcome, and give us an overview of the company. Let's start there.
Thanks, Jane. It's great to be with you. The Renovaro Biosciences has been around now for a little more than 5 years. And we've been developing an advanced, as you mentioned, therapy for cancer. And our vision really is a future free from chemotherapy, toxic chemotherapy. And so we're using immunotherapy with cells that are genetically modified to retrain the immune system to be able to control cancers, we believe, without toxic chemotherapy, so that your own immune system, which failed, that's why you have cancer, can be retrained so that it can successfully control the cancer to eliminate the need, we hope, for toxic chemotherapy. Now, the results, preclinical results, are spectacular. They've all been done by UCLA. Dr. Anahid Jewett, one of the leaders, who just named by Stanford University as one in the top 2% of scientists in the world, has done all of the trials. And we see consistently across multiple animal models the same results, what she calls the holy grail of cancer research. 80 to 90% reduction in size of tumor. This is in pancreatic cancer to start. What's left in that tumor sac is mostly effector immune cells still eating up the cancer. The third thing is in the bloodstream, we see correlates of the immune response we would predict to see with our immunotherapy, strong immune responses, which leads to the fourth piece of the holy grail, no metastases. So seeing that over and over again in animal models makes us very hopeful that we will see something very similar in humans. And we start with cancers that are difficult to treat. Pancreatic cancer is what our models have been in. We also have some very promising results in liver cancer. Second line, there's no good second line for liver cancer. Triple negative breast cancer is one of our targets, head and neck cancer, other things that are difficult to treat. And that's because there are many people living with them. In the United States, 60,000 people a year are diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I don't know about you, but I've had family member dies. It's a terrible disease. And so there's that humanitarian component, but also because, and especially with biologic products like ours, the FDA is moving pretty quickly on approvals. And so you don't even need to get to phase 3s in many cases, as long as your phase 2 studies look like our animal studies do. You can get approval just with phase 2 studies. And so we're looking at beginning clinical trials end of this coming year, 2024, and have answers perhaps by the end of 2025, early 26, to be in the commercial marketplace if the results look like they do in humans. And we're doing the studies not only in pancreatic, but in those other hard to treat tumors. And solid tumors are 80% of tumors. So it's a big market. And if it works in cancers that are difficult to treat, it should work in cancers that are relatively easy to treat. So there is that vision of how do we get to a future of stimulating the immune system so we don't have to give toxic chemotherapy anymore.
Yeah, that sounds very promising and exciting for the future. Can you talk a little bit more about your cell and gene therapies, particularly that you're developing right now?
Yeah, it's a little complicated. I'll just give you the high level. We use dendritic cells that are derived from other people. So we take stem cells from another human being, and we, in the laboratory, stimulate those stem cells to become dendritic cells, which are the masters of our immune system. And we think that's very important. We think it's a mistake. We cannot outsmart nature. We cannot outsmart the immune system. And so picking a downstream cell like an NK cell or a T cell, which are very important, is great, but why not let the immune system figure that out? And so we take dendritic cells from other people, we genetically modify them to upregulate key pieces on top of the dendritic cells that help orchestrate that whole immune system to bring in all of the immune system. And then we load it with cancer. So it's mostly off the shelf. As soon as we know the type of selfness a person has and have a bit of tumor, it's right off the shelf, and we can have it right back in 2 weeks for the patient. And then hopefully we'll have great results. But it's that combination of cell, gene, and immunotherapy with those results we talked about. And we believe this combination with GEDi Cube, pending shareholder approval, will actually accelerate on multiple fronts. And I'm sure we'd love to talk about that.
Yeah. So let's talk about that since you brought it up. How will GEDi Cube be able to enhance what you're doing?
It's actually a wonderful world of mutually reinforcing and, in fact, a multiplier effect. So we talked about the future of non-invasive, effectively, non-toxic chemotherapy being a thing of the past. But we also want to find cancer before it finds you. The earlier you identify cancer, the most better your likelihood is of success. And the AI component can bring that in. In fact, the first product we hope to have within 2024, again, pending shareholder approval, is actually a diagnostic test for cancer to try to pick it up earlier. So find cancer before it finds you. The second component is to predict whether or not people will respond well to therapies. And AI should allow us, we believe, to be able to do that with non-invasive approaches, to simply draw some blood. So after someone is diagnosed with cancer, to select the therapy that's most likely to succeed, and importantly, not select something that is unlikely to work. And then the third piece is picking up recurrence faster, because the earlier you pick up recurrence, the more likely you are to succeed. So you're looking at a world, we hope, of non-invasive ability to diagnose early, to predict which therapy will work, and to detect recurrence, and to then have therapies that don't require toxic chemotherapy for a better world for patients. Imagine, and this is possible today within 72 hours, but we imagine a future where a person comes in for a screening test to their doctor, and early cancer is picked up perhaps while they're still in the waiting room. We can predict which therapy will work, and then we can follow that patient over time, treating them with non-toxic therapy, looking for the recurrence. Now, that doesn't need to be with our products right now. It can be with any product. And so we're going to start actually with the big 5 tumors, colorectal cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, and other tumors that are the main cause of death, are a second leading cause of death in much of the world, including the United States. But we will then be able to use that information to strengthen our own portfolio, to pick what are those other cancers we want to look at. And then the data we collect in the clinical trials then reinforces the algorithms, the AIs, to look even better for diagnosis, predicting therapeutic response and recurrence. So it's kind of a holistic approach to a future free from pain to people suffering with cancers and their families, but also for their clinicians. Because if you can predict the response to therapy, instead of waiting 6 months, a year, on the wrong drug while your cancer is growing, and with the health system paying, for example, PD-1 inhibitors projected to be a $145 billion market, 60% of people fail. Wouldn't it be a good idea to know that before you start that therapy, so that the cancer doesn't grow, and so that the health system isn't spending money that isn't going to work? So improving the lives of patients for healthy longevity.
It's amazing, the role that artificial intelligence may play in medicine, and how it can make everything more efficient and more successful and quicker. And so, as you just explained, so let's talk a little bit about how you envision your therapies helping people at some point in the future. What's kind of your roadmap, and where would you like to be in 5 years, say?
Yeah, so the roadmap for 5 years is the sky's the limit. The roadmap in the shorter term is the exciting way to get to that 5 years. So first of all, on the therapeutic end, as I mentioned, because we're targeting cancers that are difficult to treat, that will alleviate suffering for so many people, we believe, again, assuming the human data look like the mouse data. Because of that, we can move relatively quickly through the regulatory system. And if all goes well, we project we could actually have those therapies available for people in the general public by the end of 2025, beginning of 2026. So not that far in the future, and then increase over time the access to that therapy. We'd also have second, third generations. We can always improve it, make it better, make it easier for people to take, although this is a very easy product because it's cells from other people and we don't have to use that toxic chemotherapy. But there are other immunomodulators and things that could enhance therapy even more to get to that future of, at least in solid tumors and potentially liquid tumors like leukemias, no need for toxic chemotherapy within our lifetime, which is pretty exciting. On the GEDi Cube side, on the AI side, We expect to have our first product, which would be a test from blood for early diagnosis in 2024, and potentially even within 2024, that predictor of whether or not therapy will respond. And that's in 2024. So you can see not only helping patients in 2024, but also revenue beginning in 2024, and then expanding into 2025. The other wonderful thing from a commercial perspective is the target market is the exact same for the AI technology and for the cell gene therapy products, because it's everyone's basically our client. The patient, certainly, the clinical provider. I mean, you really want to know. I can't tell you how excited oncologists are when we talk about predicting response to therapy, the potential to predict response to therapy. So they're not giving their patients the wrong thing, knowing the cancer is growing. And then that early recurrence. That's a hugely important approach. And so it's the patient, it's the clinician and clinician societies, it's health systems that would want those AI products. And then it's really general markets, are within the United States, Medicare, Medicaid, in Europe, national health systems. The GEDi Cube is actually based in Amsterdam. So we have a European and an American base that we will build out commercial markets for, target both at the same time. And then it's the same clients as the immunotherapy comes in. The other thing we're doing, and I've been doing this a long time in many different fields, what I've noticed over time is that many companies do things in a linear fashion. We do not. We do them in parallel. So we're already working on our internal review board approvals and everything for our product that we don't expect to have begin clinical trials for a year, because it can take 6 to 8 months to get through all the red tape and all the procedures. In the same way, we will start moving towards the commercial market for the AI products in early next year, so that the groundwork is laid and people are aware and wanting what we have. Supply and demand is what determines commercial markets. Yeah. So we need to have that supply, which we're working hard on, but you also need to start building the demand early. The patient advocacy groups, the clinician groups, the medical systems, you have to start working with those early so that when your product hits, you have the commercial market and the demand there.
Yeah. Interesting how you're doing those things parallel instead of one after the other.
Yeah, you do them after the others can take a long, long time.
Absolutely. Just more efficient. So, in your development of these therapies, have there been any obstacles, challenges? How did you overcome those, if so?
That's a great question. And, anyone who says they don't have challenges and things are going smoothly, you should wonder if they're telling you the truth. There are always challenges. So we've had to modulate how we what we call vectors, what we load our gene therapy into, and use different vendors. Some vendors have produced and some not. We've had to adjust who will produce this cell therapy. We've had to adjust some things based on our pre-IND, so the early meeting with the FDA, asking for things, most of which we anticipated, but then we had to do extra tests for that. But we have a very strong management system, and this is what I've been doing for 35 years. I've run $6.5 billion startups in the U.S. government, $4.5 billion a year international programs, delivering products all over the world. You have to really actively project manage. And so we have very regular project management teams. We have red flag systems. So as soon as we pick up an indication that there's a problem, you constantly have to troubleshoot. There's always a solution, and we have a phenomenal team of people, and we have a phenomenal team of partners like Dr. Anahid Jewett at UCLA. We have Dr. Hans-Peter Kiem from the Fred Hutchinson is one of our advisors, Rich Whitley from the University of Alabama, big names in our field. So we troubleshoot rapidly. And that's why we've been able to pivot. And even with all of those challenges, stay on timelines. Management, a lot of things with startups and biotechs is, it's a bunch of scientists who haven't run things and haven't managed a lot in terms of how do you get from A to B. And it's all about the ideas. The ideas are the start, but it's the management that gets you to your product and gets you to commercialization.
Absolutely. And staying on top of things and following up. So that's so key. Well, Mark, congratulations or best of luck on the closing of the deal. And please let us know as your trials go on and as you develop with the AI. It'd be interesting to hear how it's all being incorporated into medicine.
Thank you. We'd love to do that. It's an exciting time. I mean, the future is so bright for us to radically change our approach, really revolutionize medicine and determine the future of medicine.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.